Well, hello and welcome to the video. Today, let's talk about truck driver recruiting. Specifically, I want to talk about 12 steps to hiring and retaining more truck drivers. And it's a very interesting topic and something that if you work for a fleet as a recruiter, or if you're trying to build a fleet, trying to maintain a fleet, trying to get more truck drivers, virtually every trucking company out there is trying to get more truck drivers. Some of them desperately trying to fill empty seats. Other folks are planning on starting a fleet, building from being a one truck owner operator and continuing to build that out and add trucks and, hope to have a sizable fleet someday. This information will help all of you, regardless of what circumstance you're at, wherever you're at in that journey. Even the mega carriers might learn a thing or two if they actually bothered to listen and to try some of the things I'm going to suggest to you. But that's one of the issues that we'll talk about a little bit later on as we get into this. Yeah, and that is trucking companies being set in their ways and not wanting to change. They keep doing the same old crap over and over and over, and it doesn't work very good. And instead of changing it, they're always lamenting about the driver shortage and the driver problem. There is no driver shortage if you know how to recruit drivers and how to retain drivers. So we'll talk about that a little bit further too. But anyway, to start out with, number one, the first thing that you need to do if you want to be able to recruit more drivers and keep the drivers that you do recruit for long periods of time and lower and reduce that turnover rate, the first thing you need to do is be honest with your offers. Don't tell people a bunch of crap just to try to get them in the door, because they're certainly going to find out that you told them a bunch of crap just to get them in the door, and they're going to wise up and they're going to quit. And when they quit, not only are you going to lose that driver, but that driver is going to tell other drivers what you did to them. Your company gets a bad reputation. It certainly doesn't get a good reputation. It doesn't get people going out of their way saying, hey, you really should need to go work for ABC Trucking, whatever the name of your company is. You don't get that when you mistreat people, when you feed them a line of crap. I mean, think about yourself. How do you like it when you go and deal with a car repair shop or any other business or somebody that lies to you? You're not going to have a favorable thing. Certainly your employer in the past, regardless of what it is you've done for a living before you were owning, managing, running, working in a trucking company. Think about past employment that you yourself have had and when you've been misled. And it doesn't make you feel good, doesn't make you happy, and it certainly doesn't make you want to promote that company, and it doesn't make you want to stay with it either. You're going to be looking for another job from day one and looking to jump ship just as quickly as you possibly can, and rightfully so. So be honest in the offers that you make, and then deliver on what it is that you tell them that they're going to get. If you tell them that they're going to be home every week, you need to do everything humanly possible to make that happen. And a lot of companies don't. They say it's lip service, and then when the end of the week rolls around, oh, I've got this hot load. Well, every load's a hot load. Or I've got this crisis or emergency. Emergency you're going to have is a massive turnover rate because you're not doing what you say you're going to do. So if you tell them they're going to be home on the weekends, get them home on the weekends. If you tell them you're going to get them home Friday, get them home Friday. Don't get them home late Saturday night, expect them to go back out Sunday evening or first thing Monday morning. Make honest offers and then deliver on what you promised them that you're going to do. A lot more of that is in people's control and in companies' controls, and they want to let on to be. But you just got to make it a decision, a business decision, follow through that. So honest offers, honest deliveries. That's number one. Number two, pay, top pay. Trucking companies are ate up with old, antiquated, outdated methods where they start you down here, 4 or 5 cents down on the pay scale, and then you get a little bump at 6 months, another bump at 6 months, and so forth until you get up to whatever the rate is that the company can pay. Lots of companies do that, and that's why you have a lot of churn, because the next company decides it wants to offer a little bit higher beginning rate than what you're offering. So they jump ship from your company to go somewhere else for a penny or 2 cents more. If you want to eliminate that 9 cents altogether. If you figure out whatever your maximum rate is at the top of your pay scale, pay every driver you have from day one, if they're experienced drivers, what your maximum rate of pay is. There's no reason not to. And that eliminates that problem of people jumping ship. Make sure that your pay rate is in line with the higher end of what other companies are offering out there, for experienced drivers. And also, now don't be stupid about things. You can't pay out more money than you're taking in, but be honest in that as well. Make sure that you're having efficient operations, managing everything properly, and that you're able to pay as much as you can, and then pay as much as you can from day one. Stop the nonsense of, we'll start them down here and we'll bump them up, and we'll bump them up and bump them up. That crap's been going on for decades and it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because the next guy that offers a half a cent or a penny more than you are is going to pull your drivers away this week. Somebody's going to do the same thing the next week. It just feeds into the churn. When you're paying them at the upper end of the spectrum, where else are they going to go? If you're running an efficient, productive company and you're paying fair rates and you're paying the top of the food chain, there's very few companies that are going to be able to pay more than you are. And the ones that don't get this, they're not going to offer that because they're trying to start them down lower on the scale. So you'll be able to get a lot more drivers right out of the gate, and you'll be able to keep them a whole lot longer as well. So get rid of that floating scale, bump you up nonsense. Bump it up from day one for an experienced driver. Now, the only exception to that is if you're hiring trainees right out of school, the trainee is going to be on a low rate while they're training. And that usually is going to be a salary of some type, some sort of a flat rate, $750, $800 a week, whatever the amount is that you're going to pay them while they're with a trainer. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on too. And as soon as they finish training and they start running on their own, don't play that nonsense with them. In 90 days, we'll evaluate you. The minute that driver starts running loads on his or her own and they're delivering that freight, they need to be making the upper end of that scale too, so that they're going to be very happy with the job. They're going to want to stay. They're going to want to tell other people to come to your organization. Or you can keep doing the nonsense and keep getting the same results. So my suggestion is get rid of that bump crap and bump them all the way up to the top from day one, except if they're training. So anyway, number 3, pay recruiting referral bonuses and make them realistically attainable. You need to have the referral's name and their phone number at the time that the contact is made with that driver. In other words, before they start talking to a recruiter or an in-processing person or show up at orientation, your driver needs to say, hey, I talked to John Brown or whoever, whatever the person's name, and here's their phone number. And here, get your recruiter to give them a call and bring them in that way. As long as they're in the system, that they're attached to the referring driver, as soon as that referral makes it through orientation, you need to pay them at least a third, if not half, of what your recruiting referral fee is right then, as soon as that individual hooks to and completes delivery of the first load. Now, I wouldn't pay them as soon as they finished orientation. I would pay them as soon as they finish orientation and complete the first load. They've generated some revenue for the company. Go ahead and reward your driver for getting them in here and helping do that, and give them a strong incentive to want to keep doing that. And then pay out the rest of it in a reasonable period of time, 90 days, something like that, not 2 years or some nonsense like that. With you can split it up in a couple of payments or something, pay it out within 90 days or so of the time that referred driver gets there and starts running. So you want to have a good referral program. And you want to encourage your drivers to use that as well. And you want to train them on how to do that. Something very few, if any, companies do is actually teach your drivers how to become rolling recruiters, how to go about actively searching for other drivers and bringing them aboard. And they should be proud to do that. If the company is good enough for them to work at and they're happy working for you, for your organization, they should have no problem whatsoever going out and trying to get other people to come aboard as well. Okay, so recruiting referral bonuses. Another part of that is to give them an incentive to become coaches and mentors to your new drivers. And when I say new drivers, that's whether they're bringing on inexperienced drivers or they're bringing on experienced people, or both, so that they can stay in contact with them and help show them the ropes of your company and your organization, and just help them out with anything that they can, information, guidance, advice, a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes it's stressful changing jobs. So you can do that by either paying your existing drivers who bring somebody else into you through your recruiting referral program either a penny per mile for all miles that that driver runs for you, or you can make it a flat rate of say $25 per week for each week that their referred driver has productivity. So if that driver has ran a load, at least a load, done something to generate revenue, then your current driver that has referred them into your organization gets a little bump, get a little bonus of $25. It doesn't sound like a lot, but 4 drivers is $100 a week. And it's not a month, that's a week. You need to be paying them that amount per week. And if you do that, they're only making the money when the people that they brought on board are making you money. So you're not paying anything out unless you're having the money coming in from those efforts as well. So that's a very strong incentive program when you combine those two things that I mentioned on recruiting referral bonus up front, or paid out over a period of a third of it up front, half of it up front as soon as they do their first load, and then the rest of it paid out in a short period of time, like 90 days, as long as the referred driver is productive and producing revenue for your company, and the person that referred them into your organization is still with you and driving. And when you tie this other little ongoing thing, and don't cap that at a year, let it run forever. And you say nuts. No, not nuts, genius. Because as that level of income goes up, as your existing drivers refer people, and they get up to a point where they're making several $100s, and some of them will make several $1,000s per month off of all their recruits and their referrals. But remember, they're only making this money if they're bringing people in, and if those people are productive and they're bringing money in. So it costs you nothing up front. They produce first, and then you pay. You're sharing your revenue with them, but you've turned your entire company, certainly your entire driver base, into a very motivated recruiting force. And if you train them on how to do these things, I'm telling you, you'll kick some serious butt doing this. But I'm not worried about it as I build my own company, because I know that very few people will actually do this. Hearing it's one thing, doing it is another. And there's not enough companies that are going to go out and actively do these things consistently. But those that do are going to not have problems keeping their trucks filled. They're not going to have problems expanding it either. So 2 very powerful things right there regarding recruiting, number 3, number 4, we just talked about. And again, that has your referring drivers becoming coaches and mentors and retention specialists, if you would, as well, on an ongoing basis. They don't want to see them go anywhere, because what happens if they leave the company? Then their fee, or their ongoing recruiting referral fee or bonus, whatever you want to call it, stops. So they don't want them to go anywhere. They want to do everything they can to keep them there. They're certainly not going to go anywhere, because if they do, what happens? Let's say somebody's built up where they're making a couple $1,000 extra a month, plus you're paying them at the top of the scale. They're making more money now than they can make anywhere else. And if they leave your organization, that recruiting referral bonus that they get every month that they worked hard to get over a period of time as they brought in more people, poof, that's gone. And have a situation where if you leave and if you later come back, that is not reinstated. If we take you back, that's gone. So that's a very, very strong incentive for people to come and stay with your organization and think 10 times before ever choosing to leave. And again, where are they going to go? Who else can offer them a better deal than that, income-wise and bonus-wise? Have a training program. Well, let's back up a little bit. Number 5, train your recruiters, and I mean your drivers, what I call rolling recruiters. Teach them how to recruit. Teach them how to talk to people. Teach them how to document information, how to ask for the name, how to ask for the phone number, how to get an email address, how to make contact, how to stay in touch. Teach them the fundamentals of recruiting, and in accordance with your company policies and that kind of stuff. Again, go back up to the top. Teach them never to lie, never to BS anybody, always tell the truth, always give accurate information. But if they learn the principles and the fundamentals of being able to recruit people, and they're gathering names and information and building that database, then they're doing a couple of different things. One, encourage them to submit those names into your company whether they get them to come aboard immediately or not, and tie their name to that person. So if that individual comes aboard later on through your own efforts internally, they're still going to get paid because they made the first contact. They documented that, they put them in the system. So if they come aboard anytime within, let's say, a year from the time that this person talks to them, your existing driver talks to them, they're going to get credit for that. But now they're out and about and in the truck stops and on the road and at the shippers and receivers talking to other drivers, collecting information, channeling that back into your primary database for you of qualified leads, qualified drivers. And if your internal recruiters are trained properly, that's a topic for another video I'll cover later on. But if they're trained and knowledgeable on how to recruit using that information, that is absolute gold. It's golden. It's a never-ending source of leads that you're going to be able to go out there and with other methods that I would teach in-house recruiters to constantly be calling and sending cards and doing all the other techniques and methods to move that person along if they're interested in coming to work for your company and get them on board. So, but it begins with training your road trainers, or your not road trainers, your rolling recruiters, as I like to call it, on how to actually do that. Because a lot of people haven't had a sales background or a recruiting background, so they may not know what they need to do. So you need to teach them how to do that, and I can certainly help you do that as well if you're interested in doing it, learning how to do it yourself. All right. Number 6, have a training program. Be able to hire new entry-level drivers directly from truck driver training schools as they graduate. You want to build up a relationship with schools in your operating areas where you run to, where you're interested in hiring people out of, and you want to go out and visit those schools on a regular basis. You want to try to get somebody out there, whether that's you or one of your recruiters or staff members, whatever, get somebody to physically go out to these schools at least once per class. Now, a lot of these classes are 4 weeks long, some of them are 6 weeks long, some of them are 12 weeks long. Most of them are at least 3 or 4 weeks long. So basically a class a month. So let's say you got 4 or 5 truck driving schools that you're interested in pulling people from. You're going to need to make one visit. You can do that all in one day. You know, depending how far they're spread apart. Maybe you have to have a couple of different people cover them. Maybe you can cover them all yourself. It depends on where it's at. But certainly within a few days, you can make a visit to each one of those new classes before those people graduate. Try to get their information. Have them fill out a card. If the school doesn't oppose that, have them fill out a little contact card. Get their name, whether they think they're interested in coming to work for you or not right now. Have them put their name and their address and their email and their phone number on a little contact card. Give them a hat or pen, some little thing, different handouts. Take some snacks in for them, that kind of stuff. Get that form filled out, and again, you're collecting names for future recruits or recruiting people into your company. And same thing, go back up and read the list that we already talked about. Follow the procedures, honesty and integrity. Do what you say you're going to do so you have a good reputation. And, if you choose to implement the things I've told you, tell them about all those things. Be straight up, straightforward, and honest about what you're trying to do and how you're doing it, how you're incentivizing your entire fleet, all your drivers, to help build and grow the fleet so there's more revenue coming in, so there's better benefits for everybody, so there's better terminals, there's better trucks, there's better, more money coming in means more ability to pay higher rates, all kinds of things. So, share that with them and let them know what you're doing and what you got going on. And then if you're going to do that, you need to have obviously an ability to bring those people out of school and put them into what I call a road training program. When students graduate truck driver training schools, CDL schools, they're not ready to go out and deliver freight solo on their own in almost all cases. They're going to need some additional finishing work. That's why some people call these type programs a finishing program. I prefer the terminology road training program, but you call it whatever you want. Road training program, finishing program, internal training program. But the idea is you bring them on board, process them in like you would another driver. They're going to complete orientation. They're going to complete an initial road test. And then instead of getting a truck assignment going out and starting to deliver freight, they're going to be paired up with a trainer, a road trainer. Now, the trainer needs to be experienced. That also is another video. We're not going to get in depth on that, but I'll give you a few key things. Nobody should be training other people unless they have at least 9 months minimum experience. 2 years experience is better, but minimum 9 months with outstanding performance in an individual who has been through a train the trainer program, where they have been specifically verified that they have the skill level that they should have, and they've been taught and trained on how to talk to, communicate with, and instruct other drivers, and how to document it. You need to document what you're doing during each day of training with your drivers when they're paired up. And the other thing is very, very, very important is that when you're doing this, this is a training program. It is not your opportunity to run a cheap team operation. That means that your trainer should never, ever be in the bunk, sleeping, or anywhere else other than in that jump seat, supervising the trainee, or right outside the truck, keeping an eye on and making sure things are being done correctly. In other words, they're in training. A lot of motor carriers, large and small, don't do that. They'll pair 2 rookies up together. They'll take somebody that's got 4 months experience, 3 months experience, 3 weeks of experience, stick another driver in it in the truck, call it a training operation, and have them run as a cheap team. And it doesn't end well. People have been killed doing that. And motor carriers have been successfully sued, as they should be, because they acknowledge themselves when they use the terminology training that the individual that is supposedly being trained is a trainee and is therefore not ready to go out and do these things on their own. So then they can't wiggle out of saying, well, they had a CDL, blah, blah, blah. No, you had a training program, you designated a training program, and you've been trying to run them as a cheap team operation. Now somebody's dead, now you're gonna pay, and it's gonna be in millions of dollars. So don't be like that, and I absolutely hate to see programs that run like that. A training program should never, ever allow the trainer to get in the sleeper berth at a minimum. And that individual needs to have enough experience to know how to do what it is that they profess to be training other people to do. And it needs to be verified by you and your organization. And you need to teach them, because unless they've been an instructor or they've done extensive work in sales or training or something in the past, military perhaps, unless they have extensive experience training other people, they don't know how to train other people. They might be an outstanding truck driver. They might have the skills, but if they're not good at communicating, or worse, they're bad at, and say some inappropriate things and do some inappropriate things, they can at a minimum run people off that you're investing a lot of time and money into getting them into your organization. In a worst case scenario, you can open up the door to all kinds of additional liabilities. So that's a much more in-depth thing, and I'll cover that in other videos. I also cover in courses and stuff, how to train the trainer, how to set up a training program, how to run a road training program, all that kind of stuff. But you should have a road training program, and be sure to get it approved first by your insurance company. Now, if you can't articulate your program and show it to them, and better yet, hand them something in writing, it's spelled out, typed up, nicely written, that explains the whole thing step by step, and that you and whoever's going to be running it are knowledgeable enough so you can explain it off the top of your head, and it comes across that you know what you're talking about. Unless you can do that, the chances of your insurance company letting you set up a training program not going to be very good. They're going to say, no, we don't think so. But if you can articulate and then give them a written overview of your program and the reasons why, and you have the right insurance company, you can probably get it approved. And do it in writing. Make sure if they agree to it that they send you something in writing, at the very least an email, preferably a letter of some type that authorizes you to run your training program, so that you don't have your own insurance company trying to either drop your insurance coverage or turn around trying to sue you in the event something were to happen. So get it approved by your insurance company first. Okay. So, but if you have a training program and you do all these other things I'm telling you about, you can dramatically increase the size of your fleet, and you can increase the quality. I'm telling you, the drivers that you train and train properly and treat fairly are going to keep pace and outperform most experienced drivers across the board with a lot fewer problems if you have a good training program. And then as far as your experienced drivers, if you do the screening and the things that we talked about earlier, recruit, attract the top of the line drivers, pay them and reward them well, give them good incentives, you'll have the best of both worlds. You'll be able to expand the fleet with your inexperienced drivers that you're training to become top performers, and you'll be able to attract top performers from other companies and you'll have your pick of drivers there. You will, if you're good enough at doing all this stuff, you might actually have a list of people waiting to be hired, depending on the size of your operation. Wouldn't that be nice compared to what most people typically have? All right. Number 7, road trainer. To have a training program, obviously you need a trainer. We just talked about that a little bit. But to incentivize that trainer, you need to pay them additional money. They're going to make the same for everybody else at the top of the scale, but as long as they are a trainer, they're going to get an additional amount. That's a kicker on top of that. That's a strong, powerful incentive to become a trainer. That might be a cent or 2 or 3 or 5 cents, whatever it is, per mile in addition to what you're paying. And pay them this all miles, all the time. Doesn't matter whether they have a trainee assigned or not. As long as they're active in your training program as a trainer and they're ready and willing to accept a trainee, even if you don't have one for a given week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever period of time is, you're still going to pay them their money. You're not going to penalize them for that. Okay, so they're going to get that. And they're going to get an additional amount for every day that they have a trainee assigned to them. I like $25 a day. Okay, you can pay them whatever you think is fair, but make it enough of an incentive. You look at it at $25 a day every 10 days, that's $250. Plus they're getting that kicker on top of that. So they have a pretty good incentive to keep trainees in the truck. They can make several hundred extra dollars per month for each and every month that they have somebody in the truck. And if they're trained as a rolling recruiter, they can be out recruiting people, so they get paid for recruiting them, bring them in, get them through orientation, pull some of them over and be able to train them personally. Now, if they're productive as rolling recruiters, they're not going to be able to train all their own recruits because maybe they bring in 5 this month. Okay, and there's only one of them, so it means they're only going to be able to train one trainee, depending on how long your program is. But let's say, it's 3 weeks, that's going to time up for 3 weeks. So even if it's a shorter program, a 2-week training program, the maximum that they could train would be 2 in a month. But do that and pay them some sort of a kicker on an ongoing basis for the first year that those trainees are there. Now that's in addition to the recruiting referral fees that we talked about. This is an additional fee. Maybe it's $5 a week or something like that. For the first year, that gives them an incentive to stay in touch with them, make sure their skills are developing, make sure that their retention is high so you're not losing people. But you need a good road trainer program. You need to train the trainer on how to be a trainer, as we mentioned before. You need to incentivize them, make sure they're making, your trainers should be the top paid drivers of your fleet. Next, number 8, you need to have excellent condition equipment. Not necessarily it has to be brand new. It's not necessarily it has to be the most beautiful equipment in the world, but it needs to be sound. It needs to look decent, which you should be doing anyway, so you're not bringing disrespect upon your company when you're out and about and the customers and everybody else is looking at your equipment. You want it to look decent, but the most important thing is that it's mechanically sound. Your equipment has good tires, brakes, everything on it is being checked, is being serviced, is being properly maintained, is being repaired. So when that truck goes out, you're not gonna have to worry about breakdowns. You're not gonna have to worry about that. Your truck sitting beside the road and losing revenue and frustrating your drivers and that kind of stuff. So have very good equipment. And a part of that too is having good shop personnel. I've been in trucking for a long time, almost 3 decades, in all kinds of different positions. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've certainly seen that with shop personnel. And I'll tell you, a lot of shop personnel need some serious training. Not all of them, some of them are great mechanics, but they have crappy people skills. And some of the mechanics and some of the shop foremen also look at the drivers as being some sort of burden on them, instead of that the drivers are out producing the revenue that pays everybody's salaries. Okay, so your shop needs to treat that driver. It doesn't matter if it's an entry-level driver that just started, or a company driver, or if you have leased owner operators, whatever. They need to treat all those drivers as though they're an independent owner operator coming in to receive services from an independent shop, and that person could go somewhere else if they wanted to. Now, I know that's not exactly the case, but that's how they need to be treated. They need to be treated as customers, because believe me, they are. If your shop people are upsetting your drivers and running them off because they're mistreating them and not talking properly to them and just being just generally nasty or negative, those shop personnel, whether that's the foreman or the guy or gal at the counter or whoever it is costing you money by the thousands of dollars. Depending on the size of your operation, it could be tens of thousands of dollars every year that person or the people are costing you. So it doesn't make any sense to work your butt off to build up a good recruiting or retention program and have other people in your organization that are disrespectful and are just callous and are causing people to leave. And people will leave if they're mistreated. So make certain that people that handle your shop are trained in customer service, and they understand that driver, even though that driver is a company driver, is their customer, and they need to be treated accordingly. Now, that doesn't mean you got to put a bunch of crap off anybody either. I mean, the drivers need to be the same way. They need to be taught and trained to treat all staff members, including the shop, with courtesy, dignity, and respect at all times. But I'm telling you, the shop is a source of a lot of turnover in a lot of trucking companies as well, unnecessary turnover. So make sure that the people that are interacting there are doing it on a professional, courteous level, and that the services that they provide are outstanding. I've also known shops that don't want to fix anything. Sometimes it's the foreman of the shop or the mechanics in the shop themselves. Sometimes it's the owner directing them to do that. But if it needs to be fixed, you need to get it taken care of. Don't be trying to put Band-Aids on stuff and run raggedy junk down the road, or do things are not right. If something is wore out or broke or damaged, whatever the case may be, fix it immediately. And if it's something that you don't have a part in, it's not a safety issue, it's not likely to break down, reassure the driver that you got it, you're ordering a part, the truck will be taken down when you come back in off of this next trip, and they'll get it taken care of and fixed out. But keep your equipment in good shape, and keep your people that are running your shop and stuff in good shape, so that they're interacting with other people on a positive level. Number 9, have organized onboarding and in-processing. A lot of trucking companies, and other companies for that matter, suck at hiring people. They leave people sitting around in a waiting room, waiting area, driver's lounge, whatever, hotel, motel, and they start everything out on the wrong foot. And then somebody comes in frazzled, digging through papers, fumbling through stuff, and acting like they're bothered that they have to do in-processing. Don't do that. In-processing needs to be like a class. It needs to be scheduled. All your documents and paperwork need to be laid out and ready and in folders with their name on it before they get there. Whoever's leading the orientation needs to know what they're doing, backwards and forwards, inside out. And they need to run it in an organized method. The first thing you want to do is welcome the people when they come in. If you're not quite ready to start, let's say orientation starts at 8, people start showing up at 7:30. Say, hey, welcome, glad you're here. Straight down the end of the hall is driver's lounge. To the right of that is a restroom, and in the lounge there's some coffee brewing. Go ahead and make yourself comfortable. I'll be out there in just a few minutes. We got a few more people coming in, and we got some paperwork to get ready, and then I'll come out there and get you. You got any questions or anything? Oh, no? Okay, great. I'll see you in a few minutes. And then when everybody's there or at the appointed time, to the minute, don't be late. If anything, be a minute early. Go out there and get them. Welcome everybody again. Tell them, come on, gather the stuff and follow you. You can go into the training room wherever you're going to do the orientation. Get them all set up, and in there, all the documents and everything should be waiting. Welcome them again. Tell them a little bit about yourself, whoever it is that's doing the orientation. You don't need a 1 hour soapbox grandstanding thing, but just a brief introduction to who you are and that kind of thing. Just a brief introduction, overview of the company again. And then ask them, say, hey, look, you want to go around the room? Some people are uncomfortable with this. Not going to put you on the spot. You don't have to if you don't want to, but would you like to just briefly introduce yourself and say something about, where you came from, your background, that kind of thing. Most people are. Most people will be happy to do it. Breaks the ice, breaks the tension, and makes everybody feel a bit more at ease. Run around the room, do that kind of thing, and then come on back. So, all right, now the schedule for the day is, if you'll notice, the top piece of paper on your folder is your orientation schedule. And this is a time frame we're going to try closely to stick to. It's not written in stone. There's a couple of things that might change, but this is generally our plan for the day. It's what we want to try to get accomplished, and just run down through that real quick. And then make sure that you stick to that schedule as closely as you can. And the other people that are going to be coming in to speak with your drivers to get paperwork, it's payroll or operations, and you should have a rep from the shop come up and meet them, talk to them, welcome them aboard, give them a rundown of how maintenance works and that kind of stuff. And all those things should be scheduled. Each person that comes in to do that should have a time slot, and they need to be kept to that time slot. If your slot is 15 minutes, that's what you have. You don't have 45 minutes because you're going to make everybody else late, so do it that way, and you run a very organized, methodical onboarding and in-processing deal. And while other people are talking to them, once you've already got all their initial paperwork filled out, then you can take that out and somebody else can be pulling that apart, double checking it, making sure they're going through it. It's all in exact same order, laid out the same way, but they can check it, make sure everything was filled out right. There's nothing missing, that they got all the docs and everything that you need. And even go ahead and start putting their qualification files together, the personnel files together, start getting them in the payroll system, all that stuff. So it's just a very organized way to do it. Again, I can show you how to set that up and train it. Another topic for another video, course, or whatever the case may be. There's lots to that, but make sure that when people come aboard your organization, it's organized, it's methodical, and it's the same all the time. And it's scheduled. I've seen companies that hire somebody on Monday, they run them all around a building, disrupting a whole building. They hire another guy on Tuesday, run them around a building, disrupt everybody. Wednesday, same thing. That's absolutely stupid. And if you're doing that, stop that. Stop that immediately. Schedule your orientations. I always like to do orientations on a Tuesday because there's too many things that can go wrong on a Monday. Monday, it gives me or gives a staff member a chance to get back in touch with them, confirm everything is on track, take care of any issues that we need to take care of to make sure that it's still coming and everything's going to take place as it's supposed to. And it gives people time to travel if they need to get into the area if they're coming in from out of town, that sort of deal. So I like to do orientations on Tuesday, finish them up on Wednesday, road testing on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how long your orientation is and what you got to get going on. And by the end of the week, your experienced drivers are rolling. And that's the other thing too. I like to drug test people before orientation. I like to drug test them before orientation and get the drug test result back, if possible, before orientation starts. Certainly not going to be drug testing anybody if I can help it at orientation. I don't want any surprise. I want everything taken care of in advance. But you do you. Just do it in an organized manner, and you'll get a lot better results from that. Have great home time, and you need to come as close to a guarantee on that as you can. If you tell people that you're going to have home time every weekend, that's great, and I think that's a workable thing to do in this day and age in most cases. People don't want to do, as a general rule, there are exceptions. There are some crazy people out there that still want to be in trucks and be gone 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time. They are, percentage-wise, minuscule. Almost nobody wants to do that. And even the people that want to do that, their families don't want them doing it, so it's going to be a source of problems. And that was the case for me. I wouldn't give a crap. I can be gone and live out the truck and never come home, except for I have a family. Family doesn't like that. So for family issues, that's not going to cut it. I did that when I first started driving. I was gone 3 or 4 weeks at a time, come home day and a half, back out, do the same thing, rinse and repeat over and over again. That didn't go on too good. That lasted for a couple of years, and then it was either we're going to have to be getting some changes to the work or looking for another line of employment. And I love driving trucks, love delivering freight, but didn't like the tension and the problems it caused by being gone all the time. So I went to regional and I went to dedicated. I like dedicated as a company driver better than anything else I ever did. I like knowing what I'm doing. I like, going the same group of places, not the exact same place every day, but the same group of places. I like stable pay. I like stable time at home. I think a lot of other people do too. The next best thing is short haul or short haul regional, where people, let's say they were operating Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, West Virginia, maybe a little bit of Tennessee, a little bit of Georgia, possibly some Alabama. They're in a few other states, but they're running these areas and they're out bouncing around in there. Might get a chance to go by the house once or twice, even during the week, depending on what they're running. and then they're back home Friday evening, not going back out to late Sunday night or early Monday morning. If you do that, the vast majority of drivers can handle that. And certainly if you do all the other things that we've talked about on this list and are willing to pay that way, a lot of people will put up with that, and their families will put up with it too, because they're making very good money. And if you have very good money, you should also be able to afford and offer very good benefits to them as well. So they're getting the best of the best that there is out there. So, but whatever it is you're going to have for time at home, make sure whatever, again, that it's something that the majority of the people that you're trying to attract or recruit are going to be willing to do. And I'm just telling you, if you're trying to attract a whole fleet of people that don't mind being gone whenever you send them out until whenever you tell them to come back in, good luck with that. People don't want to do that crap anymore. So you're not going to find large numbers of people that's going to work for. I suggest getting them home at least every weekend, and ideally trying to get them back by the house, unless they live off in Timbuktu somewhere, trying to get them back by the house, at least through the house, at least once during the week. So they're out overnight, 1 or 2 nights back by the house, grab a sandwich, shower, maybe 10-hour DO2 break if possible, and then go back out, do the same thing, and then they're back in late Friday evening or early Friday evening, go back out either late Sunday night or early Monday morning, sometime on Monday, rinse and repeat. You do that combined with these other things, you're not going to have a whole lot of problems. You may hear a little background noise because we get a lot of rain coming in. We definitely need it. Everything is dry in this area where I'm at. So have great home time, and whatever you tell them their home time is, make sure they get what you promised them. Even if you got to bring that truck back empty. Now, you don't want to be doing that too often, obviously, but if it's a choice between that and shafting the driver, then bring the driver back in, because otherwise you're going to have the same problem that you likely have had and that most motor carriers have, and that is empty trucks. Well, they have empty trucks because they put what they think is the needs of the freight and stuff above the driver, but that results in not having the drivers you need to move the freight. So it's counterintuitive. So don't do that. Get your drivers home. Do whatever you got to do. And if you need to iron out some issues with dispatch so that you have freight lined up, and then do that. Do some more training, do some more sales work, do whatever you got to do to get more loads lined up. But if you can't do that, bring that truck on back in. When you do lose people, here's another tip. Number 11, step 11, do exit interviews. When people leave, ask them to fill out an exit interview. If they've given notice and they're leaving on good terms, ask them to fill out an exit interview and turn that in. And don't turn that in to whoever had direct authority over them. It doesn't go to their dispatcher or something like that. It needs to go to the company owner, or it needs to go to the personnel director or somebody like that. It does not need to go to the folks that interacted with them directly, on a day-to-day basis. If somebody left on bad terms, other than somebody's fired, if you fired somebody, you don't need to do an exit interview. You know why you're firing them. But if they weren't fired, but they left on even bad terms, give them a few days to calm down, and then reach out to them with a phone call, an email, a letter, all that. I'll say, hey, look, sorry things worked out the way they did. Sorry you're no longer with us. But we genuinely want to try to see if there's anything we can do to resolve it, so maybe you come back in the future, or even if you can't do that, to help your fellow drivers so that we can try to make improvements. So we're always interested in improvement. So what happened that caused you to leave us, and what could we do to prevent that? If we had to do over, what could we have done to have prevented that from happening? If you ask things like that, you'd be surprised. Most people will answer you. Okay, I've done that for years. A lot of people are apprehensive about doing it, but do it like I just said, and they will. And some won't. Some take a little longer than others to cool off. But most of them, if you reach out the right way, will eventually give you an answer. Sometimes it'll be in writing. Sometimes it'll just be words in a phone call. But get the information, document it, put it in a file somewhere, and don't just file it. Not look at it. Look at it and see if you see patterns there. Onesies and twosies on anything never really impress me much. But when I see patterns, let's say, for example, we're going to pick on the shop some more. Shop foreman rude, wouldn't fix truck, cursed me out, got grease all over my steering wheel, got grease on my sheets, somebody rifled through my personal stuff while the truck was in the shop and stole something or whatever. I mean, I've heard it and seen it all, okay? So, again, one complaint like that doesn't matter, but if you got 10 complaints from 10 different people that left over 10 different months or whatever the case may be, all saying exactly the same thing, you might want to take a look at your shop foreman and your mechanics and see what the problem is there. Or it could be anything. It could be a dispatcher. It could be a particular load, a particular customer. I mean, when you start, I'll give you another example. Years ago, when I was overseeing recruiting and training for a particular company, we kept losing a lot of drivers who quit after they ran a certain place that was a grocery warehouse in Jessup, Maryland. And we did a little bit of an analysis, and we compared what we were making off of that to what it was costing us by losing that number of drivers. And we were losing an arm and a leg. It made no sense to do that. So we canceled that account and got rid of it. We weren't making money, we're losing money. We're losing drivers, massive amounts of drivers, because we were treated very, very badly at this particular location. So we kicked that customer to the curb, and that alone dramatically improved retention. So you might have some customers that you need to give an opportunity to let them go find somebody else to haul their freight. Not every customer is a good customer. So if they're costing you a lot of drivers because they're rude and nasty. Now, it's not just saying, some have a bad day. Every customer's like that. You have a bad day with somebody. If it's every single driver that goes to that place every single time, gets stuck there, gets mistreated, gets cursed at, has all kinds of problems with it, then you might want to think about getting rid of that customer. But again, use your exit interviews to figure out what the source of the problem is and see if you can solve that, if you can do some improvement. And last but not least, your internal in-house recruiters, they need to be trained. You need to have recruiters that know what they're doing. Somebody's got to teach them. Okay, most recruiters don't know what they're doing. They hire somebody off the street that has no experience, or they take somebody out of a dispatch. It was a dispatcher, or somebody out of the shop, or some truck driver. There was a driver for a few years, maybe a lot of years, but never recruited or referred anybody else in. It certainly didn't do it on a consistent basis. Recruiting is another skill that needs to be taught. Okay, it needs to be taught, and it needs to be put into practice and learned and developed. It's like selling real estate, just like somebody working on a car, whatever. They need the fundamentals to know what they're doing, and then they need to do it, to practice it, to get good at it. And it needs to be a specific way of going about doing things. And if you do that, and I'll tell you this, and we'll go ahead and end this one here, but they need to be taught that all the sources of getting leads that we talked about earlier are utilized to build a massive recruiting database. That's gold. A lot of people think you run an ad, or somebody comes in off a sign call, or whatever the case may be, that I've got to recruit them right there, and if they won't come to work, I don't even need to get their name. If that person's not willing to put in an application today, they just let them walk right back out, or hang the phone up. Who'd you talk to? I don't know. Somebody's talking about it. Your number one thing as a recruiter, number one thing is to get contact information. That's the real purpose of your ads, of all your marketing, everything is not necessarily to recruit them in right off that first contact or attempt, but is to start a relationship. Is to have a database that you can begin to reach out and touch base and establish a relationship, and then continue that over a period of time. If you understand that, and you're constantly building that database, and then your recruiters are trained on how to use that without harassing people. You don't be calling somebody up every single day. You ready to come to work yet? Just bugging the crap out of them. They'll change the number and block you and cut you off. But there's ways to do that. And again, another course, another video, another time. But you want to build that massive database, and then you want to use that effectively by your recruiters that's how you get your people. All these things combined together, but that database is gold. And again, if you use the things I told you with your drivers will help you build that database. Now, you make sure they get rewarded, because even if your internal recruiter does the end work that gets that person in there, if your driver put you in touch with that person initially, you make sure that they get rewarded and they get paid for that. Okay? But if you do all these things together, you're going to kick the absolute crap out of all the other competition in trucking, and you won't have a driver shortage. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already done it, and I'll see you in the next video.